Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. The federal government, believe it or not, is spending more on weed busts than on fighting domestic terrorism. We're going to explore that. And we're also going to share with you the craziest marijuana statistic you'll ever see. We're going to tell you which colleges consume the most cannabis and the least. We've got these and a bunch of other cool stuff for you today. Welcome to Vote Pro Podcast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
I'm Andrew McCready's.
And before we get started, I just want to clear the record here a little bit because as our listeners may know, I was away last week at the beach. Had a great time.
Having hemorrhoid surgery.
No, I would see that's what I want to clear up. I did not, in fact, have hemorrhoid surgery. I was at the beach, and nobody at the beach knows how to perform hemorrhoid surgery. I'm beginning to think that.
There's a ton of Rehoboth jokes right there.
Yeah, I'm starting to think Andrew was kind of, was a little tongue-in-cheek there.
Ooh.
See what I did there?
I get it.
As usual, always going straight for the butthole. No. And speaking of buttholes, I go away for 1 week and all of a sudden you're bringing on Bernie Sanders. Oh, give me a break. No, it was important news article. Turns out he would make marijuana legal on the federal level, but he would do it the wrong way. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, you do it the quickest way you could. You go in there and by executive order, you would legalize it. Now, I don't know if they would follow that up with congressional legislation. I don't know. But it seems, the Obama and Trump both seem to have houses that are sort of gridlocked. They won't agree on anything. So if they want to get something done, they're using executive orders.
It's really not that bad of a strategy, really, because the executive orders, as you would point out, don't hold up for very long. Because what you can do with an executive order, you can undo with an executive order.
I know, but an executive order to legalize marijuana and then establish a multi-billion-dollar industry, and then the next guy comes up and goes, oh, by the way, it's going to be illegal again.
Right. Well, yeah, but sometimes an executive order in a case like that might tide the nation over until such time as a favorable makeup in Congress to cannabis legalization appears, and then we get it done, the way it's supposed to be done by legislation. So it's not the worst strategy in the world. It's not something you would rely on, though. It's not the end of the game. It's kind of the beginning of the game.
Well, President Obama found that out the hard way. His legacy is pretty much gone now.
A lot of things that he did was very quickly undone.
Yep.
Well, we're a cannabis advocacy podcast. Doesn't mean we don't touch on all kinds of things. But tell us what you think. Get in touch with us. Now, we do this podcast for fun, the three of us, and because we believe in and are passionate about spreading the word and getting the ball, moving on cannabis legalization. There is no financial reward in it for us, and that's fine. It's not why we're here. But if you do enjoy the podcast and you'd like to do something to help us spread the word, there are a couple of things you can do. First, please take a minute to share this episode with one of our other episodes with some of your friends. Whichever podcast app you use, click the share button and send it to someone you think is going to enjoy it. That would really, if they did enjoy it, you'd come off as a hero, and it helps us. And second, we really would like you to take just a minute, go on down to the Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating. That's just really helping us to get the word out, and we would really appreciate. Anything else, Jay?
Take the time to reach out to us. You can find us in some great tips on how you can move legal reform forward by visiting us at VoteProPot.com. You can send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. You can leave us a message on our message line at 240-257-2441. and we'll put you on the show.
We like that.
There's so much more going on in the world of cannabis reform than we can cover on this podcast on a weekly basis. So we share a lot of articles and information on social networking, specifically Facebook and LinkedIn. You can see a lot of information. If you want to find out more, you'll find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Just do a search for VoteProPot.
We're going to start with a little state initiative update, and that happened in Arizona. Jay, you have something about that?
Well, yeah, Arizona has a pretty decent medical program as we speak. And of course, there are a lot of advocates are trying to get adult use going. And Arizona voters may get the chance to decide next year whether recreational is legal.
Come on, baby.
Legalization advocates said they've filed paperwork with the Arizona Secretary of State to put a question before the voters on the 2020 ballot. They'll need to collect 237,645 signatures from registered voters by July of 2020. So that's about a year.
What's the number there again?
About 237,645 signatures are required.
All right, so go for 250,000. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and that'll work. The spokeswoman Stacy Pearson said advocates have learned from a failed effort in 2016 when a legislative initiative was defeated after getting only 49% of the vote. So they're working extra hard. And now that people have had the opportunity to witness the medical program that's actually going quite well in Arizona, they feel pretty confident that this will go through. And they certainly don't think they'll have any problem getting the signatures they need to get it on the ballot.
So they really weren't that far off in 16.
They
right?
were very close.
No, they're
very close.
1%.
Yep.
2%.
Right, 2%.
2%. Right.
The 2020 initiative, supported by the Arizona Dispensaries Association, would allow adults 21 and over to have up to 1 ounce of marijuana and would also create more retail medical marijuana licenses. And they sent out a press release this week which lists the bullet points of the legislation. And it's actually, and we've talked about it here, guys, about how so many of these ballot issues have no details. So they end up getting squashed later by anti-cannabis folks. Well, this one's pretty well detailed. It gets into, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It would take too much time. But, in a nutshell, you have to be 21, they claim it'll generate $300 million in new revenue via a 16% excise tax. That's not terrible. I mean, it's a little high, but
it's high, but it's not
ain't
terrible.
California,
No. Immigration's been in the news quite a lot, as I don't need to tell anybody. What are you doing? Are you making s'mores?
Those little marshmallows. This is my new munchies. These 3 little mini marshmallows.
Wow.
On a toothpick.
That's awesome. Oh, man.
that looks delicious. I haven't eaten anything.
I dip them in chocolate, then roll them in graham cracker crumbs.
Oh, my God.
That's great.
I got some sativa last week, and it motivated me. It gave me like a really creative rush. I figured out three mini marshmallows on a toothpick.
So, Andrew, if you were an immigrant, illegal or otherwise, in the United States, and you were asked anything about marijuana, whether you use anything, what would you do?
Well, first off, if I was an immigrant, I wouldn't come to the United States. That's for sure.
Well, then you wouldn't be an immigrant.
Well, I'd immigrate to a different country.
Oh,
I'd go
okay,
someplace where there's nothing but white sand and palm trees. Actually, here's a problem. Now, people who are not just immigrating to, but traveling to the United States are being blocked and refused entrance if they admit to using cannabis, even if it was just recreational in the past. Now, for example, there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Palomoro. He's 26, I believe he's from California. Now, he came to the United States when he was 6 years old. He's been working legally. I think he had a green card and it expired or something, but he was applying for a new green card. But he also had to go to Mexico for some reason. And before he went, he actually took some P tests to make sure that, he was clean. He could pass those. And he went there. And on the way back, his lawyer advised him. They said, if I'm asked, he goes, don't lie, because it's better to tell the truth than to be caught in the lie. The lie's worse than the truth. is what he's saying. So when he was coming back to the United States, they asked him, had he ever used it? Well, I was in California. I've tried it legally in the past. And they went, well, sorry, you're not welcome back to the United States. He goes, but I'm married to I'm a woman who's born and raised, who's an American citizen. We have a child. I mean, I'm in the process of getting a green card. I'm not illegal, you know. I'm not undocumented. I've been here since, you know, I don't know anyone in Mexico. I mean, but right now he's sitting in Mexico trying to get back in.
Wow.
Well, that should not be a reason to not. I mean, if they would otherwise let you back, that should not be a reason to not let you back. I don't understand that one bit.
It's like there's just any excuse. I mean, then nothing's getting by. But I don't know. I hate to say it, but I think in some cases, I know personally a friend of mine who was doing relief work, used to go out to third world countries and help children. And she did it for years and years. And after, she went to this one country for over 10 years, and she met a guy there. And over the years, after about 6 years, they sort of fell in love. Then after 10 years, they got married, and he moved to the United States. And the country he's from is just sort of has, let's say, a very strong cannabis culture. And I was telling him, I said, man, if you're here, don't apply for a medical marijuana card. You know, don't admit to it, because if you do, you will never be given citizenship. Well, and you might even get deported.
Well,
you know.
That's
so what do you do?
Certainly something to keep in mind. Well, you know, you do what Americans have been doing for the last generation. You know, keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
you lie. Yeah,
right.
You just don't let the authorities know about it.
Well, I'm not going to advise anyone to break the law, but if
of course
you're going to want to get in, you're not. You know, you might have to not be totally honest about, especially legal use in the past. I can understand if you're a smuggler.
Right.
But just some guy smoked a joint. I was at a party in Malibu.
That's crazy.
You know?
Really, and if that's the only reason they want to ask, they're really not entitled to know. You don't have to tell them. You know? It's not even lying. It's just like you don't... It's nobody's business.
I always wondered about that. I've been
treat it as if it's nobody else's business. Huh?
I've gone through immigration. They ask, "Are you a member of a terrorist organization?" I was like, "Who in the hell's going to answer? What terrorist is going to go?" Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know. I mean, you know, it's almost like
the government.
I don't know. Maybe they do that. If you ever do get arrested, that's one more charge. You lied on immigration.
Right. That's true.
Anyway, so. It's tough. Immigration and cannabis are both hot topics nowadays, and when they come together, it's going to be difficult.
Well, and while we're on the subject, Andrew, you make a good point. We do not advocate non-compliance with any existing laws. What we're about is changing laws. Too many people's lives have been disrupted and destroyed already by enforcement of unjust and, we think, wrong-headed and ineffective cannabis laws, and the last thing we want anyone to do is to put themselves in any kind of legal jeopardy for any reason. So, obey the law. But in this case, I would say somebody who had a legal past and someone's asking about it for no other reason than to boot them out of the country, it's none of their business. Don't say a word. Politicos like me, and maybe like you, are familiar with The Hill. It's a political website and magazine. This article, and it has a lot to do with what's, you know, inside baseball in Washington. And this article is about lobbyists. And apparently lobbying firms are fighting are crawling over each other to take advantage of the cannabis boom. And as a number of the bills on the industry, they're moving through Congress, they're moving through state legislatures, and businesses are looking for help to deal with the new legislative challenges, regulatory challenges, all of the, and the folks on K Street are very, very eager to help out and capitalize. And that's highlighted this week by the highest grossing firm, Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, launching a new cannabis and industrial hemp industry group. So this is a lobbying group for the industry.
So these are heavy. These are professional, hard-hitting
lobbyists,
top of the rung.
Many of them are former legislators or officials themselves, so know their way around legislation.
These are the big boys. These are professional lobby firms are now getting into cannabis, is what you're saying.
Which is amazing.
Right. And it's an indication of the momentum. I think that this is has generated, and I think
and the stigma disappearing.
Right, among official Washington. Yeah. So,
well, I believe that there's no way cannabis is going to be legal nationally in every state without a whole lot of lobbyists and lawyers.
That's it. Like everything else. I mean,
well,
that's right.
I hate to have to agree with that, but I can't not agree with it. It's absolutely true. I mean, it pains me to think of it that way, but yeah, without a whole lot of high dollar, high influence people.
We've grown up here in Washington, D.C., the three of us, and we know that this city is really run by the lobbyists. It just is.
Well, to some extent, yeah. I mean, they are the influence peddlers.
Yep.
And Marion Barry. Hey, now a lot of you people from outside of Washington has probably heard of the great Washington D.C. Mayor Marion Barry, and you probably heard a lot of awful things about him. And Marion, he definitely made some mistakes, but. If you ever met him and you're from D.C., there was something. The guy had a charm, and
The bitch set me up.
Yeah, we're like
no. He had a bravado about him that a lot of
swagger.
People.
You guys. There's a lot of people in D.C. that still love Marion Barry.
And in fairness, he was there in the middle of the civil rights movement. Man, he was walking along with Dr. King and Jesse and all of them. So in fairness,
but he became a poster child for city government corruption.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, the guy was caught on film smoking crack
with a hooker.
No, it wasn't a hooker. And if you watch the video, he was quite upset that she couldn't get powder. And all she could get was crack. Because I don't want to smoke crack. I want to just do a couple lines. Anyway.
Yeah, you got to give him credit for that, right?
Well, his famous saying was, if you put aside all the murders, we don't really have that much crime in D.C.
Except for the federal government.
Rest in peace, my friend.
Yeah, the late great mayor.
He got reelected. He got reelected after he got busted.
Yeah, after he came out of prison.
He sure as hell did. Now, was of the age that when I was in college, I did smoke my share of cannabis. I don't know how prevalent it was at the school I went to. Now, the first school I went to was Berklee College of Music. It was prevalent, but if you got caught, you were out. And the same thing at James Madison, where I graduated from. But it was kind of a preppy environment there, so I don't know how much weed was being smoked. I don't know. Where are the people getting high on campus nowadays, Jay?
Well, I think things have changed a lot from our days. That's for sure. I would assume it's more acceptable. The Princeton Review lists colleges that consume the most and the least cannabis in their recent publication, which, as part of the annual college rankings, which they put out every year, they've included in the Princeton Review colleges that consume the most and the least cannabis. And just 9 out of the top 20 of what they call reefer madness, which are the top list, are in states that have legalized cannabis. So they had the top 20, they had the reefer madness, which are the ones that smoke the most. And then they had the don't inhale, which were the ones that don't. So go through real quick here. If you're a college grad, an alumni, see if your college made the list. The way they came up with this list is they actually sent out a survey. So I don't know how accurate it is. They sent a survey out to students, and students fill out, and there's a whole lot of questions on it. One of them was, how prevalent, how widely used is marijuana in your school? So here's the list. The University of Vermont in Burlington topped the list as the number one. Wow. I know, yeah. While two other Vermont institutions, Marlborough College was number 9, and Champlain College, neither of which I've heard of, I have to admit, is number 14.
I didn't know there were so many stoners up there, man.
Well, cannabis is legal in Vermont.
Well, 3 out of the top 20 are from Vermont. So in all, 7 New York colleges made the list, the most of any state. Of course, they probably have the most colleges, too. There's a lot of colleges in New York, in fairness. In New York, you've got Bard was number 8. Sarah Lawrence was number 12. The State University of New York at Purchase was number 13. Ithaca College is 17. And Syracuse University and Hamilton College rounded out the top 20. Colleges from Colorado and California, which have perhaps the largest legal cannabis industries, had 2 colleges each in the Princeton Review. Claremont, California, Pitzer College landed at number 2, while the University of California, Santa Barbara was number 10. Colorado College and University of Colorado in Boulder were both back-to-back at 15 and 16. Other colleges from states with legal cannabis to make the list included Portland, Oregon's Reed College, number 6, and the University of Maine, number 7. So
no mystery here. These are states that have adult use.
Well, some of them are.
Many of them.
Many of them are, yeah. Right.
Well, New York doesn't, but
Oh, yeah, right. New York does not.
but it's New York. They don't give a fuck.
The University of Rhode Island rounded out the top 3, while Warren Wilson College of Asheville, North Carolina was number 11, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison was 18. None of those...
Are these the least?
No, they're in the top. And none of those colleges have legalized cannabis for adult use. Now, as you would probably expect, the don't inhale colleges include a few military academies. So whether they don't use it or whether they don't want to put it on their survey, that's really probably the question.
Well, both probably.
Yeah. Military academies represented the top 3 schools of the don't inhale list, which also includes as many California universities as the Reefer Madness list. Thomas Aquinas College, number 5, and Pepperdine University, number 18. So the don't inhale list also includes several colleges from legal states, including Illinois' Wheaton College, number 7, and Illinois' Institute of Technology, number 15. That's the nerd school, I would imagine. Michigan Institute, Calvin University, number 9, and Hillsdale College, number 14. Boston, Massachusetts, Simmons University was number 20. So those are your Reefer Madness and your don't inhale colleges.
Where does the Wharton School fall in there?
Yeah, it wasn't listed, so
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
probably.
I thought if that was like high on the stoner list, it might explain some things.
Well, none of our alma maters were on there. What's up with that? But that doesn't seem.
Montgomery College wasn't up there. Montgomery Community College.
Do you think they
go Harvard on
the Pike? Now, I wonder how difficult it was to get respondents from these universities and colleges to participate.
I assume it was
in this survey.
I assume it was like an anonymous survey. They probably didn't have to put their. I don't know.
So how do we use this? So is this the great list for parents?
Yeah,
to refer to when their kids are going
to either send or not send their kids?
I think I want to go to school in Vermont, Mom, Dad. I want to go to school in Vermont.
You're not going to school in Vermont.
Where did that come
from? Actually, I read an article this week about how you can tell if your children are smoking weed, and they're like, look in their face. And the other one was smell their clothes.
Oh,
I was like,
God.
oh, really? Seriously? And then the last one was like, just talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe they could have led with ask them.
I had friends who had kids who, had high school and college age kids that they busted with pot. And one guy I knew, his son was doing great in college. It's great kids. They had a job and he was working. And he found some weed, and the kid said, look, I found this. And the kid goes, I really don't drink. I just like smoking on the weekends a little bit. I don't smoke that much, just a little bit here and there. And the kid was really positive and didn't deny it. Was like, yeah, I smoke. I'm not going to stop. I kind of like it, And the father ended up like, I think saying, do you know where I can get any weed, dude? Really?
Jay, you don't know anything about that,
no,
dude.
Really, the guy. I know a few people who get weed from their kids. That's for sure. Or in the old black market days. I don't know about nowadays, but
no, not now. It's the damnedest thing. The federal government is actually spending more on busting people with weed than in fighting domestic terrorism.
Last year, the federal government spent $18 million seizing and destroying cannabis plants. So they cut $18 million from the Office of Community Partnership, which was a program designed to try to cut radicalism on the local level. It just seems that, especially under the current circumstances, that the federal government is more concerned with eradicating cannabis plants than domestic terrorism. I think the recent events might say that was not a good decision.
I would agree. That's ridiculous. What are the numbers there? Do they have that?
Department of Homeland Security was spending $14 million a year funding programs that would look into far-right extremist groups. Now, they cut that $14 million from that program, which is something separate from the other one. And coincidentally, that's how much the Department of Defense spent on security for the president while playing golf at Mar-a-Lago.
I wonder who wrote that article.
Mary Jane is in Mary Jane.
Shocker.
You know. Anyway, I think that's obviously that's irrelevant, quite frankly, to this.
That's not even a rounding error,
Yeah, it's just that obviously I think this point is the federal government wasn't really as concerned as obviously they probably should have been with domestic terrorism, and they're more concerned with eradicating cannabis plants than they should be.
Well, I think that's the point. I mean, their priorities are all screwed up. Here's the craziest marijuana statistic you'll see, I don't know, maybe ever.
Well, it's not crazy. It's shocking. It's surprising.
Well, it's a little shocking, yeah. Online investors and others will be familiar with the website, The Motley Fool. It's full of articles and news items and tips on investing. They're saying that for all intents and purposes, the legal weed market, just to put it into the backdrop, is going to be, and actually is, among the fastest growing industries in the world, really. The industry registered about $11 billion in worldwide sales in 2018. Various Wall Street projections have it between $50 billion and $200 billion over the next 10 years. Now, that's double-digit annual growth rate.
Amazing.
So, with that in mind, the shocking statistic is that California sales have actually dropped over the last year. Even with pot being Scheduled I drug, U.S. is on track for $7 billion in legalized spending in 2019. That's almost half of the global world weed sales, by the way, which we've talked about. This year, sales of legal weed should hit about, if we continue the trajectory, about $3.1 billion, up from $2.5 billion in 2018, and account for about 40% of sales in the United States. However, California also holds a very dubious honor. See what I did there? Actually, I didn't do that. That was Sean Williams. He wrote this article. So credit where credit's due. Among legal weed states, it's actually the price or the sales of legal weed have gone down. In 2017, California racked up $3 billion in legal sales just from medical cannabis alone, mind you, which was legalized in the late 90s. Then on January 1st, 18, recreational cannabis sales began after the passage of Prop 64 a couple years before. Yet, legal weed revenue declined by $500,000 from about $3 billion to about $2.5 billion, despite adding the recreational component to the medical component. Now, I don't understand that one bit.
Well, we do understand it. We've talked about it.
Actually, we do understand. And it's something from our, you heard it here first department. We've been talking about this. The first problem can likely be traced to California's aggressive taxation of legal weed. Right now, California imposes 15% retail excise tax on marijuana, a base sales tax of 7.25%, and city tax is a cultivation tax, which is about almost 10% per ounce of flower, and $2.75 per ounce on leaves. And as we've talked about before, it's this kind of onerous taxation of marijuana that is pushing a lot of buyers back to the black market.
Well, the whole thing in California, ever since the medical marijuana market was established, the rules were so vague that really you could almost call the medical marijuana industry in California a gray market. And so when it was legalized and a lot of what was your regulated, the tax stores, so many of them were put out of business from new zoning when they made it legal.
Right, just legislated right out of business.
Right. So I think that probably had a big effect on the amount of tracked sales. I don't think the people in California are smoking less marijuana.
Right. I don't think you even covered in that article, Phil, you may have, but that doesn't even include the permitting and licensing fees, which are astronomical. So if you,
No, there's so many. I mean, if you want to be a retailer,
right.
The fees and the licensing, it's through the roof. And which brings up the next point, that black market producers, illicit producers, they don't have to wait for or pay for or apply for state licenses to grow and to sell weed. And they're not going to pay the taxes.
Right.
Excise tax or any taxes. So it doesn't negate the fact that black market production is illegal, but it hasn't stopped. I mean, it never did. People from buying through illegal channels. And it's just like you say, it is the spawning of the gray market, Andrew, as you say, where the people buy it legally and sell it illegally.
And I mean, I think it's fair to say that in most legal states, it's getting to the point where it's more cost effective for a user to go buy at a dispensary than on the black or gray market. And that's not the case in California because it's so damn expensive to buy weed because the licensing and permitting and taxes and everything else are so high. It's just, why spend $500 an ounce when I can go buy it from John Doe down the street? Yeah, right.
Right. There is a sound equilibrium level of taxation on this product that some states apparently have gotten much closer to, but California just
never
hasn't.
have.
Well, it had such an established medical, half-assed medical industry that it's very difficult. The new regulations. California is the only state where we're going to have that problem. The other thing that you don't take into account, that California has some great weed, and I'm sure the stuff you can get in the Ziplocs is probably pretty
good.
High quality.
Right. Right, and that's probably not the case in other parts of the country.
That's probably
here in
another
Maryland.
reason. Man, I can go down. I don't get get from the guy I've known for years, and he's giving me some fucking stuff. There's some stuff that is just as good, if not better, than the stuff I'm getting at the dispensaries. So
right,
it's going to be hard to compete with that.
So they got to be price competitive, and they're not. Well, folks, thanks a lot once again for joining us here at Vote Pro Podcast. We sure do appreciate your downloading and listening to us ramble on about this and that. But please, like I said, we do this for no financial reward. We're happy to do it. We love the show, but we would love to get any help we can in spreading the word. And there are a couple of things you can do. Take a minute, share this episode with a friend, and if you can take just another minute, go to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating. It sure would help us out.
Send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. Go to our website at VoteProPot.com. Leave us a message at our message line at 240-257-2441.
Please like, follow, and share us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Sunday afternoon, like little birds on a cable, condemning forbidden fruit, but slipping it under the table. The table. Friday after school, Daddy's out with the boys and he's sipping a gin and juice right after telling the kids that it's poison. It's poison. You can tell me all about it. Show me what you're trying to prove. You something